Hey guys, it's Victor and Rick from Stream of Thought, and we just want to take a moment to say thank you for listening. We've been looking at our Podbean account recently, and we have many much appreciated downloads and listeners from different parts of the world. Yes, you heard it correctly, the world.
And we would love to get your feedback, so please send us an email if you have any thoughts, comments, ideas, suggestions, or leave a like, rating, review on Stitcher or iTunes.
And let us know maybe if there's something that you've heard us talk about, but you want to hear us talk about more. Or just anything new at streamofthoughtpodcast@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
All right, we're back for another episode of Stream of Thought. And on 77 today, we begin by talking about, of all things, our favorite ongoing behind-the-scenes stories of Stream of Thought.
We averted a huge disaster by my Spidey-Sense intuition just immediately kicking in.
Let me tell you, it was a very close call and one worth listening to. And then Victor transitions into something we've been meaning to talk about for a while, his hard drive.
We geek out for a little bit, switching hard drives, talking about external hard drives, memory cards.
And then there's a kind of a transition into March Madness and traditions in that regard. We don't spend too much time on that.
And then that relays just talking about like Purdue University, where I went to school, and just my loyalty or lack thereof, and then just kind of Indiana culture versus Chicagoland area culture. Yeah. So with that being said, episode number 77, Stream of Thought. We hope you enjoy.
All right, can I just start off by saying I feel like we need to have a little therapy session because this has been an ongoing saga behind the scenes of Stream of Thought, and I feel like we need to finally bring this out into the open.
What therapy session?
I'm talking about Dulce.
Oh, yeah.
This has been an really ongoing saga for the past, God knows, like 3 months or so, that I feel like let's sort of backtrack. I don't know. Do you want to tell the story? Because you're probably a little more attuned to, and I'll fill in the blanks because I'm sure that you're going to overlook some very important characteristics, character flaws, etc.,
or omit a few details.
Yes. So we're going back towards when we were, on only like episode 20 or so.
No, this was, I don't know. This wasn't at that. Maybe actually,
it was
I don't know.
around that time. It's been a while.
Yeah, it was before you went to Minnesota.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you're right. It was probably around that time. So, a brief synopsis. We're recording one time, and the cleaning lady comes in while we're recording, and we had to stop, and we kept the recording going, and she was asking if she should take out the trash or whatever, and she's like, oh, do you speak Spanish? And Rick's is like, no, Victor does. So I start speaking to her, and I don't know, for like the initial time, it's like maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and we thought it was funny. We included it in our episode.
That's right. Yeah,
and
we did.
It was kind of funny. And then it happened a second time, maybe later that week or a couple weeks after that.
It was a couple weeks after that,
I can't remember.
Yes.
It happened a second time while we were recording. She came in, and it was like, oh, man. It was like kind of funny again. Like, it was just kind of like,
It may have been funny for you. It was less funny for me because it ended up extending. It was significantly longer than I'd say the first time it was. At least twice as long. So first time 5 minutes.
But it was still tolerable.
It was tolerable. It was like, oh, she's a nice lady. Like, she seems to need some attention kind of thing.
And then it happens a third time, and it's just like, okay, we're just trying to record right now. And what has happened each time in between when we leave the studio and she's in the hallway or on the first floor or wherever, I get just sucked into a conversation with her, and the whole time that I'm conversing with her, I'm thinking, when is this going to end? And we discovered on another episode, one of my weaknesses is just leaving a conversation that I don't want to be in. I just can't. I'm not strong enough to just walk out of a conversation.
To be an asshole.
Or to even say, like, I need to get going. My plan is that I just let them...
You become fully engaged with the person after, like, that moment of introduction. You're just, like, you're in a conversation, and you can't end it until it's over.
But even then, like, because I like talking to her for about 5 minutes, and then I want to leave, and then I just wait for her to keep talking, and, like, I let her decide when the conversation's over. And it really sucks because it's just like the same shit over and over again. And
I think that's the thing too, is like nothing against Dulce at all.
Yeah.
Like, she's a wonderful woman. However, after we talk, it feels like every sort of time it's the exact same thing. Like, call my daughter to,
let me know if you need a job. It's
let me know if you need a job.
We've
It's
been over this.
like,
I don't need a job. I'm not
time.
calling your daughter.
And so what will happen is when Victor has gotten to the point now of sending me out as the scout ahead of time.
So now every time we come here,
every time
we now have to think like
we have to strategize.
We have to watch out for. And one time I can't remember what it was. I had circled around the building for some reason. Oh, because I wanted to like drift in the parking lot when it was snowing.
Yeah.
And we saw this woman at her car, and it was her.
It was Dulce.
But I didn't slow down. I just kept driving and then parked around, and we ran up front. But today was so humorous because, of course, we go in through the side door, which ultimately leads to the second floor, right next to the office. The first door right next to the office is perfect. And I stop. Something tells me to just stop and listen. And I stop and I wait for about 3 seconds. And I hear the sound of small little wheels rolling along the floor. And I immediately know what that is. It's a fucking mop bucket.
And here, the moment I'm following Victor, I'm like, why is he stopped? And then suddenly, like, 2 seconds later, I suddenly hear the rolling of the bucket. I'm like, oh, well, that's intuitive. And so we're there for, what, maybe another 30 seconds? And Victor's like, listening.
I'm listening.
Do you think she's gone?
I'm whispering to Rick.
Yeah, we're literally whispering in the own goddamn stairwell.
Yeah.
Like, see, like, do you think she's gone? It's like...
Because I could hear the wheels, but I couldn't tell where they were. Because where they were, there's tile, but there's thin carpet. I couldn't gauge the distance of the mop bucket from where we actually
It's
were.
hard to tell. And we're balls deep in already. So, I mean, like, at this point, Victor's like, okay, well, we've already stopped and waited. Like, maybe she's there. Maybe she went into one of the side offices there. And then you go to open the door. And you're like, wait just a second. Rix, you got first.
Yeah.
Like, here, I'm going to give you... And then you proceed to detail out, like, a 3-minute plan of what I'm going to do, like, code signs and stuff like that. I'll turn around to make sure... And I'm just like, all right, well... And so I go out into the hallway, and... I do what Victor tells me, which is to act very inconspicuously and to open the door and
which people then act conspicuously when they're told.
Of course they do. I mean,
no, you were fine.
Obviously,
you were
what I'm
totally
gonna do. So I open up the door. I'm like struggling with it. I'm like, I'm like thinking in my head. I'm like, oh shit, that's right. She was just here, so she locked both doors.
Yeah.
And open up the door, and I turn around to close it. And she's staring directly at me. And I'm just like, and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, how can I make this inconspicuous? I'm just like, and I shake my head as I turn. Not in a way that's like shaking my head at her. I'm just like, I'm hoping you can tell.
Yeah.
As I go into the office.
It was very subtle.
And I'm just like, all right, I'll come back out in like 15 seconds and see where she's at. I come around the corner. She is just turning and walked around the corner. I'm like, come now. All right, here we go. But the fact that we have to go through this like Mission Impossible style engagement pretty much every single night that we record here is one of the most amusing things, I think, behind the scenes of Stream of Thought that I experienced.
It was funny because I thought of...
it's an ongoing saga. It's like our sound issues.
Yeah, have you seen Gone in 60 Seconds? With Nicolas Cage and Angelina Jolie? Giovanni Ribisi is in it.
Many years ago. I don't really remember.
There's a scene in the movie. They're boosting cars to help save his little brother, right? And somehow, like, he was a known car booster, and somehow...
Can you give the premise of anything, or do you just, like...
Yeah, but let me get to this one scene. And somehow the detective, like, catches wind that he might be up to something. This guy who left town. Nicolas Cage left town, was a known thief, comes back, and he's like, something's up if this guy is back. And so there's a scene where Nicolas Cage is reaching for the door handle of a car to go into it, to steal the car. And he reaches his hand to the door handle, and he stops. And he looks up, and a few houses down, there's a van. And then he takes out a picture that he had taken. The van is parked at a different spot, like in a different driveway. And so he realizes that someone's watching him. So then he pulls his hand away, and he says some code word over the walkie like the ladies are dirty or something like that, which means just abort. But the fact that he had put his hand up, he stops, he looks up, and they just have to leave, abort mission. And that's what I felt like when I walked up to this. I walked to the top of the steps, and I was thinking of all the times like we've come pretty close. We've kind of hear her, just the different interactions we've had, and I was like, you know what? Stop. A couple seconds go by, and we hear the wheels, and I think, wow.
It's one of those Spidey senses are tingling.
Spidey senses tingling.
It was something to behold because I did not think anything of it. I'm like, well, maybe whatever. But the fact that you paused for those 3 seconds, and suddenly we hear the as it rolls away.
That was pretty cool.
It was quite amusing. So yeah, and it has been one of those things where I will. While Victor's editing the episode, I will go to the bathroom or something like that, and Dulcie will be out in the hallway cleaning, and she's like, "Oh, is Victor there?"
Oh, really?
And she will try and engage me. Like, I don't speak Spanish,
so
I can't really communicate with her too well. But I always try to find a way to just gently say, we're in the middle of something. Basically, have a good night. Good to see you.
Right.
Kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, you are just so nice. You're such a polite young man. I feel like you you respect your elders, and so you endure the abuse of what we have to deal with on a regular basis.
Spidey-Sense. And all I have to do is say, oh, hey, I got to get going right now. It's been nice talking to you, but I can't even bring myself to do that.
I know. It's kind of painful to watch.
Spidey-Sense tingling.
It's like being in the dentist's office for a conversation.
Okay, switch
now
things
that
up.
that we're done with that.
So, remember how we were trying to figure out the whole hard drive situation the other day?
Mm-hmm.
And my external hard drive is 500 gigabytes. And when I was trying to do this thing at my house, I was like, why does it say there's not enough space? I don't understand. And then I was like, oh, yeah. I totally forgot. I had ordered a 500 gig hard drive, right? And then what I had done was because I needed more memory and just like overall everything on my laptop when we started doing straight up. So I had purchased new larger memory cards, and I put them in my computer. And I also had switched out the hard drive. So my laptop has the 500 gig hard drive.
Oh,
so my external hard drive has my Mac hard drive, which is only 120 gigs.
That would make sense.
That's why. Yeah. And I was like, oh, duh. And then I was trying to think like, well, what can I do? And I thought, wait a minute. My PlayStation 3 is a 500 gig hard drive. I only use my PlayStation for super minimal things. I rarely play video games, of which I only have 2, which I don't really play at all.
What video games?
Grand Theft Auto 5. You were there when we.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Grand Theft Auto 5 and Call of Duty, one of the Call of Duty games.
Wow.
And by no means am I a gamer or utilize the PlayStation 3 to its full potential. I use it sometimes when I feel like going on a kill spree, and when I access Netflix or Amazon, or if I want to play a DVD. That's the only time I use it. So I did some detective work, and I went online to figure out how to open up the PlayStation 3 hard drive. And I remember this feeling that I had a couple years ago when I replaced the memory cards and switched out the hard drives a few years ago for my Mac. It felt really cool to be a little techie. Like, it's like, I'm interested in this. This is a newfound interest. I really like this. And so I'm taking out the hard drive. Of course, I didn't know because I don't really know this type of stuff. Someone's probably out there thinking like, well, of course a PlayStation 3 memory card or a hard drive isn't going to work in a Mac laptop, you idiot. Like, I didn't know that. But it felt really good again to switch them out and unscrew stuff and plug things in. And I eventually just had to purchase a new external hard drive. So I got one. One that's 1 terabyte.
Oh, the bad boy.
It was less than $50.
Yes, I know.
So that was pretty sweet.
It's so inexpensive these days.
I know.
That's kind of funny though that you thought that a PS memory.
I just thought I was like, I had a moment. I was like,
aha. Yeah. Well, I mean, why not try it out? Off the top of my head, I don't know why that. I mean. Maybe not, but
I don't know, because to me a hard drive is a hard drive. I don't know.
A hard drive is a hard drive. Yeah, exactly. It's like if you can store memory, you can. Really, isn't that the whole concept? Isn't compatible.
And so I spent a few hours today organizing some of the folders that I have, just like going through and renaming things and deleting things I didn't need, which felt really good.
It does. It takes forever, and it's kind of...
Well, it's funny because I got rid of only 3 gigs of stuff, but I went through like old VNR stuff, acting stuff, just random things.
Yeah.
And it felt really good renaming them and completely reorganizing it, because last thing I want to do is when I back everything up on my new external hard drive, I want to have it as completely organized as possible.
Okay, so I'll give you sort of my initial thoughts based off of this as somebody who's just delving into this, and coming from somebody who I feel like is relatively... I mean, I have a 2 terabyte hard drive, and like 70% of it is filled up.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most of it's
I only have on my laptop like 300
and
it's like 350
most
gigs
people
maybe.
Don't have a ton of stuff. I know my brother has a ton because he like pirates music and stuff like that. And if you do that with movies or music and stuff like that, but most of mine is editing software that takes up the space, video and audio, etc. But it's really important and it's really useful to be able to sort of do the grouping tree process. Is like, what do you use for what areas of your life, and how can you like categorize that so that they're super easy to find, make them instantaneously available, because you'll find yourself going back to the same folders over and over again and going through the same processes. Okay, I have to go to my desktop file, then I have to go to the Victor file, and then I have to go to my documents file, and then I have to go into a subfolder there, and then there's a file there.
Yeah.
And so you've clicked like 6 or 7 times, when if you sort of organize everything right, add stuff to the quick access tab and stuff like that, make it simple, make it one click and all that. It's just figure out what files you use the most common and be able to make those just one click accessible.
Yeah. I have my old MacBook Pro from 10 years ago that I had in college and shortly thereafter college, and I looked on it, I can't remember why. Oh, I think I was going to maybe see what the size of that hard drive was, too, and that was super minimal. That was like only a 90 gig hard drive or something like that.
Yeah.
But I went through and I found some old videos that I had taken when I was in college. When I went to freshman year of college, I had a camera. A little digital camera, that was at the time.
For the kids listening, cameras were the things that you
cameras
used
actually took pictures.
To take pictures instead of your phone.
Yeah. I had a camera. Its sole function was to take pictures in video and only take pictures in video.
That's right. It couldn't make a call or access the internet.
I believe when I bought this camera from Best Buy in like July or August of 2006, it cost like $300 or $400.
Yeah.
And it was maybe like 4 megapixels.
Oh my god, 4
right?
megapixels. That is crazy to think.
I want to say it was like, it wasn't like the high-end camera. I want to say it was like 1 or 2 levels below what at the time was like the best camera out there. And I buy this camera because when I went to college freshman year, like I was taking pictures and videos, and this too is at a time when there wasn't the taboo of taking pictures and videos when people are out drinking. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
That hadn't really existed
yet. That's right, because no one was really doing it.
Facebook became available.
There was no social media.
For
if you took a picture, it was just for you.
Yeah.
Like, no one else, in your mind, if you took a picture, no one else was ever going to see it.
Right.
Like, maybe a couple of your friends, but that was it. It was for personal use only.
In video, too, it wasn't like, you don't have to worry about it going on the web. You know what I'm saying?
Never.
At this time. And so, I have some videos. Dude, one of them was something that we talked about. Because I would go through parties with the camera recording, just like checking stuff out. You know what I'm saying? And I see 3 girls making out with each other on the couch, like all shit-faced, all friends, like, like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I got it on camera. It's just like a few seconds. Like, you're pretty. No, you're pretty. Yeah.
Did you bring this footage?
I have it on my computer.
We should insert an audio clip right here, yeah.
And I think I have like a couple other things. I have Neil's in one of the videos because when he was visiting Purdue and like his cousin Frank is dancing to this one song.
Oh my God, Frank.
And I have also a video of myself, Danny, and Cooper at Newton Park, summer 2007. And we're like fucking around by this tree. because we were super high on mushrooms that day, and like I just took a golf club, and I just like felt like throwing it into the tree, and it got stuck in the tree, and so then the three of us are trying to get this golf club out of a tree, and like you see us like taking the other golf club that we have and like throwing it up to try and knock it down. Cooper's like pulling on a branch. Someone else like breaks it off. Yeah, like, and all of us too. It's in the middle of the summer, and so all of us also are only wearing shorts. We don't have any shirts on. We're not wearing any sandals or shoes and socks. We're just walking around the park barefoot, without a shirt, with just our shorts on, just
not
hanging
even
out.
California.
Yeah,
suburban Chicago.
So that was another one, and there were a few others with like people who were really I only hung out with freshmen, sophomore
story,
year,
and I'm like, yeah,
it.
that sounds exactly like what you.
Oh yeah, you know that one?
In the summer of 2007.
Yeah. And I have other videos of people I'm really not friends with anymore. We were only friends for like a year in college.
You're totally gonna post on Facebook.
But I have some of those videos. Oh no, I have a video of I have the video of you. We're in Billy's basement. When they're like, okay, Rick, this is a trick shot. Like, it's either going to go to the left or the right. It's usually the left. And we put a quarter in the middle of it.
I remember.
And the
this.
idea was like, you hit the ball,
yeah.
and when it hits that quarter, it pops up and hits the person in the nuts. And you saw it coming, and it pops up, and you whack it away with your hand, and then you like run after Billy and did that bear hug and grabbed him, and we're all laughing, and then like the video is over.
I do remember that. Yeah. Yeah. Wow, you literally brought back flashbacks of like childhood memories.
I'll have to
well, because that was really one of the first times that stuff was ever recorded. So I remember watching that after it was taken. The video was taken with what? It was taken.
But then at the end of the video, I have like 2 or 3 people who also got it on video on their flip phones, and we're all laughing, and you can kind of see the image in the phone. But people have recorded it with their flip phone.
And I remember, what do you remember how you recorded it? Was it on a camera or was it on a camcorder?
It had to have been on my camera because the quality was pretty. It didn't look like it was on a cell phone from 2006, 2007.
I remember watching it afterwards after everyone had sort of calmed down and I had killed Billy.
Yeah.
We had watched it afterwards, and I mean, it was cool because it was one of the first things that was recorded that I remember.
And I have a video where like it's you, me, and Julie Carey. We're at Julie's house hanging out, and there's a video of us. Like it's not that long. It's like 30 seconds or something. But I just wish that I had more. You know what I'm saying?
I know those precious memories from childhood where you're like, this was a novelty back then, and we really took it for granted. And don't forget, too, that the amount of stuff that we could record was very limited.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like people were used to recording for 2 minutes at the most.
Yeah.
No more than that.
Yeah, I don't even
30
know.
30 seconds, 15 seconds, maybe.
I don't even know what size my memory card was.
Super small, I'm sure. It was like a megabyte or something.
It was probably like 2 megabytes. I have no idea.
Like
but you know what I did find in my drawer, in my dresser the other day, in the top drawer? It's one of the things, I see it every time I open up my drawer, but I took a minute this time to like take it out and just look at it and see what the size was. It was a floppy disk.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
It was a blue floppy disk, and I looked to see what the memory is, and it's like 4 megabytes or something like ridiculously small. It maybe if you could somehow use it today on a computer, it would maybe be able to hold 1 Word document. Maybe, you know what I'm saying?
Well, it's interesting because, and I'll say
if it was like Word Doc X, like the most updated Word, maybe one document.
It wouldn't even be compatible on something like that. But I mean, like you just reminded me that like I still have a couple of floppy disks because when I wrote my first book, I was in freshman year of high school, and I had saved it to a floppy disk so I could work on it at school and I could work on it at home and wherever. And I found it recently, but in the floppy disk itself, there's maybe like 12 files or whatever, but a Word document is something like a quarter of a gig or something like that, even as an extensive Word document. But I mean, dude, like that was essential. I don't know if you remember having to have a floppy disk for like school projects towards the end of school time.
That floppy disk, I used that
I
in
had
high
school
school.
projects on that same floppy disk. Yeah.
Well, because eventually near the end of high school, like by junior year, I had like a USB drive that I used.
Back when like PowerPoint was starting to become a thing as well.
I had a USB drive that I started to use, and I used a floppy disk for stuff, but I started to use the USB drive because I want to say it could just hold more, and it was just easier, and I believe it was getting to the point where there were maybe some computers that didn't have a floppy disk drive. So it was like maybe like
Macs never had like for computer labs that had just Macs, like they didn't. I don't think they had. Did they have floppy disks?
I don't recall. I didn't get. I mean, we had a Mac. They had to have. We had a Mac.
Yeah, they would have had to.
In the early '90s, my dad had one.
The big cube.
No, not like, before that. Before Mac made its comeback, it was like the 1994, 92 maybe. I don't know. It was right after the Lisa computer, I think. I think it was the first Macintosh.
Oh, wow.
Because Apple had, like, the Lisa before the standard Mac.
I only know that because I saw the Steve Jobs movie.
Yeah. I think it was, like, one of the first actual Macintosh models. And then the iMacs that came out with all the different colors, those came out when Steve Jobs returned and, like, saved them from bankruptcy. And then that's
so this was
when
before Steve Jobs returns that you had the Mac, or
no, my dad did.
I saw your dad.
Well, I don't know when they fired him. I can't recall. He may have still been there when they bought it. He was there, but there was like
he had an early edition.
There was like a 4 or 5 year period I think where he wasn't working.
Correct.
I can't recall.
It was before yours.
But the Nicholsons, I would always go to Lee Nicholson's house because he lived up the street from me, and his dad was a huge guy for Macs, and that was the iMac is when they revamped the company and like Macs became cool and everybody wanted them. Remember that?
I do remember
late
that.
90s.
You know what? You mentioned Lee Nicholson.
Maybe, 98.
And I just remember like he was a very eccentric dude, but if his dad worked for Mac
no, his
Apple,
dad didn't work. No, I don't know what his dad did actually.
Okay. Because I just remember him being a very sort of like he seemed more of an West Coast type personality than he did a suburban.
His dad is a super groovy guy.
Like super groovy guy?
No. His dad is like real, like, his dad is super chill and like super cool and relaxed. Yeah.
I would not know.
Yeah.
But it is incredible to think back then. And just computer labs and all that. Now everyone has their own laptops. And that's the thing, too, that I've noticed. Especially comedians, late-night comedians, on all the talk shows, whenever they mention school, like schooling or schooling experiences, they'll mention stuff like chalkboards or like even whiteboards. I mean, like, do they still use whiteboards?
I don't know.
I mean, I feel like everyone just has their computers, and that's the primary source of communication.
So it's like overhead,
exactly.
Plug it in
we'll say the overhead, the warm up period of like like, is it on? You're trying to squint in the light. Like, is it on? Like, everyone turn off the lights. Let's see if it's still
Make sure
working.
you're not using a Sharpie when you're writing on
it's not working.
Thing.
Okay, we gotta dial up on the phone to the custodian and see if he can come in and jiggle around some cords and get everything to work.
Oh my gosh, overhead.
We would wait sometimes 30 minutes, an entire class period.
I've never really taken the time to think about the overhead.
And the amount of time that was wasted on technology in school.
Having to focus it.
Having to try and adjust it. I mean, even
the markers running out and
the projectors with the magic markers and the clear plastic stuff that math teacher, like, they'd write math equations on.
Yeah.
Over the class. Yeah, the hulking machines.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I feel like we got to experience both worlds.
For a Spanish project, I had to, like, go to Kinko's and make this document, like, I went to Kinko's because I had these pictures that I was doing for a Spanish presentation, and I was using the overhead, so I had to have them, like, become transparent. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
so, Kinko's did that for me.
That's
gave
right.
a piece of paper, they do something, and then I have the transparent
I had to do that for class, too. Yeah, that's right. And it's interesting, too, because I ended up going to graduate school, so I don't know if you were still in school for that period where computers were the thing that like everyone would just take notes on their computer or whatever, or 90%.
There were a lot of people in my lecture halls at undergrad that did notes on computers, and I tried that for like half a semester, and it's like, I can't do this.
I tried it too. Did not work.
I need a notebook.
Yep. It was the same thing. But getting to seminary, getting to graduate school, by the time I graduated there, it was like 80% of the people in the class, myself included, I was taking notes on my computer. I'd prefer to do that over. I had made the transition just because technology had advanced enough that it's like teachers are putting their materials online as well, so you can access both their materials as well as take notes and anything else that you need to do, like a video or something like that that they wanted to show. And it just became very convenient and easy to use that even people who are, 50, 60, 70 years old are able to make it simple. It's like, oh, well, you just need to press this button, and suddenly, everyone has the document. Yeah. And so everyone can pull it up.
Yeah.
But the fact that we started out back in, like, 2000, like 2001, like junior high or whatever, we could have never foreseen, like, we were handed the school planners at the beginning of the year, and that was what we were supposed to take our notes in and write our dates down, and everything was handwritten, and I mean, we could have never foreseen
everything that I
later,
did.
It's all
in
gone.
All of my book reports, everything that I did for the most part was handwritten. Like, my book reports were all handwritten.
Really?
In 6th grade, I hand wrote them, and with the exception, the only stuff that was printed were like those big extensive projects that we did that would take like several weeks to do, where it was like, okay, the project begins by them teaching us how to properly cite our resources, and then we had days where we go to the library, and it was something that was like a big project that the entire team focusing on doing. Yeah. And like you had to turn it in. I remember one project I had to turn it in with like those plastic it's like a plastic folder. The top sheet is see-through, and then there's a tab that you can pull out so you can stick the paper in it, and then you push the tab in so it clasps the paper together, so it's like a nice little presentational thing. Like one of those. That was really the only time.
Cute.
Yeah.
You know what, though? I have to say, this is one of those experiences that differentiates me from my peers as you're explaining that and the wonder of magic clip-on and see-through binders. My grandfather was a book printer. And so when he retired, and I think that was around the time, I want to say that I was entering junior high school, he ended up, I believe he owned I believe he owned the printing company. But anyway, he got a lot of the materials from the printing company that he was at and gave them to all of his family, like all of his children and grandchildren and all that. But that included stuff to make basic like presentation binders and stuff like that. So even for junior high reports, I remember I ended up doing a report on Jelly Belly jelly beans that was literally like, it was like the stamp pressed and like it was like book bound and like a thick nice paper cover, textured cover, like nicely printed, all in color, graphs, charts. You open it up, it's a wonderful magic land of,
I don't even have to read
technology.
This is an A+.
And every single one of them I would get an A on. Yeah. Every single one. And the teachers would be like, you went a little overboard on this. It would always be in those words like, wow, I've never seen anything like this, or oh my goodness, like you spent a lot of time on this like simple project that we were asking you to do. But it was one of those things where I think it was my mom who was like, well, we have it, like just use it. It's like a report that you've worked a long time on, like make it look nice. And so I turned in and I'd always get an A. It was like my secret weapon, my book binding.
My project I did, I think in like sixth grade was, I think I did like on manatees or something like boring. And then I did my other one like in 8th grade or 7th grade, I don't know, was on the game Monopoly. I did all this research on like the history of Monopoly and everything. Like the only thing I remember.
Do you remember anything?
I only remember like 2 things, and that they made it during the Great Depression, and that
it was an idea stolen from a woman who had actually been anti-capitalist.
I didn't know that, or maybe I
That's
did.
actually
forgot.
the background of
And
Monopoly.
the other thing that I learned was like the longest game of Monopoly played in a bathtub was 72 hours. Like some random ass fact.
So you didn't remember the fundamental core
Dude,
of
this
the
is
concept
like-
of Monopoly,
this
which
is-
is that it was a stolen idea.
Dude, this
from
is like
somebody who
almost
was
20 years
against
ago.
monopolies.
This is like almost
right.
20 years ago. I don't
Okay.
remember this.
Well, good. I'm glad that education taught you well to appreciate capitalism for what it is.
Yep.
It's a thieving, lying bunch of, you know,
What's really on your mind?
I don't know, man.
Yeah, but that's what I remember.
So, in regards to because I mean we're not going to make this necessarily time specific, but March Madness, because we are in March now.
Yeah.
Have you? Because I feel like in college, being at Purdue of all places, they tended to get into the tournament.
Let me tell you this, all right? So I got the email the other day that Selection Sunday has been completed, and I filled out my bracket because it's like the third or fourth year with me and
Totally forgot
all
to
my
fill out a
college-
bracket this year.
all my college friends. Purdue is ranked number 2,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I had them going. Listen. I had them going to the final and losing. I've got North Carolina to win it all.
Oh my god! Why not just have Purdue win it all? Why not? Why not?
Because
What's
Purdue.
the harm?
Listen.
What's the harm?
Because Purdue.
Because you're scared?
Listen.
Of greatness?
No. Because Purdue, much like a few Chicago sports teams we know, does extremely well and then they let you down.
Yeah,
All right?
that's fair. Okay, so
That's
so
why.
you wanted in your own mind
And
to
because
give
of
you
this.
some consolation by bringing them to the Final Four of all places,
No,
or
to
the
the finals.
championship game,
And then losing
but
to
you
North
know
Carolina.
what? To losing to North Carolina because I can't give myself that sort of hope.
Yeah.
not in this life.
Because also
That
here's the
is
thing.
wonderful.
with all due respect, I have zero loyalty to Purdue. Like
Which is kind of surprising because when I think about Purdue,
I don't
Big
have-
Ten teams,
yeah.
I feel like the graduates of Big Ten schools tend to be fans of Big Ten sports teams, whether it's football, basketball, like whatever. Like if you're a Big Tenner, like you're hardcore for your school, you're just bred to be that way.
Yeah, I'm not like that
Wow.
because I have a life. You know what I'm saying?
Do you feel like yeah, that's fair enough? But do you feel like your fellow classmates are do you feel like you're the exception,
I'll
or do you
root
feel
for
like
them.
you are? There's a fair number of people in your camp of just not giving a crap.
I will root for them, and there's probably a fair amount of people who. Also, here's the other thing too. I'm not from Indiana, right?
Yes, and they do tend to
Like,
puff up the chest a little bit.
Indiana. Indiana.
No
has-
offense, by the way, to
this
our
is what they
Indiana,
have.
to our one
Let me
Indiana
tell you what they
listener.
have.
All right,
Let me tell you
just
what they
go
have.
on, yeah.
They have the Indianapolis Colts.
Are you really going to shit on the state of Indiana?
They
right
have.
now?
I'm not shitting on them. I'm giving you factual
Okay.
data. Okay.
All right.
They have the Indianapolis Colts. They have the Pacers. They have Purdue, IU, and the Indy 500. Okay? They have 5 things. Right? That's it. Let me tell you what they don't have that Chicago does have. Okay?
Boy, here we go.
Like twice as many sports
Oh,
teams.
boy. All right. Yep.
A lake.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right, you're gonna
Architecture.
get yeah. Wow.
Just world-renowned restaurants and hotels. Like, it's another level. I'm not saying this to shit on Indiana. I'm just saying
Listen.
because your mind, being in the Chicagoland area or in the city, your mind is occupied by things outside of, the handful of items that Indiana has.
Okay. I feel like is there any quality that you can describe that is truly of the Indiana spirit that is unique to somebody who's from Indiana that you're like, yes, like you embody something about Indiana or something about Indiana itself that is just like, this is something that I can say is unique about the state? Or are they just a Midwestern
No, bro.
corn state?
America.
Dude,
the Indy 500 is just as, if not slightly more, patriotic than the 4th of July.
Have you been to the...
Yes, I've been several times. And let me tell you, bro, there is more patriotism at the Indy 500 than your local 4th of July parade.
Really?
And that is a fact, dude. That is a fact.
You said that with such conviction. That
There is more patriotism at the Indy 500 than your local 4th of July parade.
Did you feel like, as somebody who was attending the Indy 500, who, let me be honest, is not a, patriot. I don't want to say you're not a patriot, but like somebody who's not like super nationalistic.
Someone who doesn't drink the Kool-Aid.
Did you feel a swell of American pride in your chest?
Absolutely.
Where you're like, this is what America's about.
Yeah, bro. The moment you crack open your beer at 6 a.m. once you get to the infield.
Okay, yep. There we go.
Woo!
That is the spirit of America right there.
Drink some beer.
A Budweiser at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Yep.
Drink some beer and watch some race cars.
Beer over the cornfields.
Yeah, dude. Yep. Yeah, living in Indiana was real sweet.
Yeah.
I'm not shitting on it.
Okay.
No.
You know what I'm saying? And that is wonderful to hear, because I was wondering, like, it was the difference between, and I feel like it's a preference in culture too, right? If you like a certain particular type of culture, it's okay to gravitate towards those areas, right? I mean, maybe, but I think it's also important to experience those things, because you weren't planning on ever living permanently in Indiana.
No,
you weren't like, yeah, these are my people. Like, I'm totally just gonna nest here and set up my roots. But the fact that you got a chance to like see and experience, it's still Midwestern culture, but a culture that's very different than a Chicago culture.
Yes,
it's like, oh, I understand a little bit more about the nuances of the Midwest or something like that.
Yes,
right.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because you're removed from the big city elitist mentality.
There is a lot of prejudice, I feel like, in certain areas, especially the suburbs of Chicago, where you have a certain perspective about the way the world is supposed to operate and the way that a community is supposed to like behave.
There is no. Let me tell you.
Outside of it.
So yeah, because I'll tell you this. So the state, what you were asking me a second ago. They have the entire state has a sense of community from, in the entire as a state, right?
Yes, as opposed to Chicago or Illinois, where it's like Chicago and the rest of the state.
What rest of the state? What? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Springfield?
Looking down on
yes, that's exactly
the rural
it.
hillbillies of southern
Someone
Illinois.
asked me the other day, or someone had like texted me. It's like, wait, Victor, you're from Illinois, right? And I don't know who this number was, so I didn't respond back. But anyone who knows me would know, yeah, I'm from Illinois. But it was jarring, because I was like, to read that, you're from Illinois, right? Like, no, I'm not from Illinois. I'm from the Chicago suburbs.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
And no one, I think we maybe talked about this once before, anybody from the Chicagoland area never says, oh, I'm from Illinois, or if they're abroad or in another part of the country, I have to go back to Illinois. I always have to go back to Chicago.
Yeah, obviously.
There is no identity with the state of Illinois. It is the city of Chicago.
Yeah. And, I feel like on where people from Chicago may have a negative perspective of someone, say, from Indiana, like rural Indiana, I feel like most of the country has a very particular perspective about Chicago and people from Chicago.
But like we are blind to see because we're here living here?
Well, yeah, but there's certain like characteristics of like, you're from Chicago, and maybe it's just me being in the political arena, but there's something about being from Chicago that people are like, oh, well, you're from Chicago. Like, the Windy City, which in reference to politics is always one of those things of, oh, you're one of these like wannabe elitists that, yeah. It's very interesting.
Yeah, go fuck yourself.
Go,
you know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's what like when someone tries to either talk down on Chicago or like when they have that mentality, I just immediately, that's my thought, what I just said, and like deflected, like, okay, just come on, stop wasting my time. Like what else is new? What else is on your mind? Like,
well, in the same way that you wouldn't like refer to somebody from Indiana as a hick or a hillbilly.
No, but here's the weird thing, not weird, but like here's the interesting thing about Indiana, right? So you have one, like the state as a whole really is like your stereotypical Midwestern, it's a good a place that can represent the Midwest as a whole. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because you think of like, Iowa, for example, like you think of like corn all over the place, and there's maybe like a few cities, quote unquote cities, if you can even call them that.
Hey now.
But Indianapolis is a populous metropolitan.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Crossroads of America, I think is what it says on their
South Bend,
license plate.
South Bend.
But what I'm getting at is like you have downtown Indianapolis, and then you have the suburbs, right?
Yeah.
And then right outside the suburbs, you just have like corn all over the place and like not corn, but like farmland. So like, and where I was in like Carmel Westfield, you have a modern suburb just like anywhere else, but then you just drive, right outside of it, and there's just farms all over the place.
Maybe that has to do with the cultural differences. Is that a place like Indiana or Indianapolis and the surrounding area like are more integrated with the rural community than the suburbs, where you have like the suburbs serve as a buffer to the rural.
Yeah.
Like there is no connection between rural and suburbs.
Yeah.
Whereas you come to a place like Indiana where you have cities where you have those distinct lines and they're close to each other. And so, by necessity, you're going to have people from those different regions interacting with each other.
A lot of people, I would say a lot of people, maybe a majority of people who grew up in the suburbs or are living in the suburbs, their parents either grew up on a farm or they grew up on like their grandparent. Like there's much more exposure to that world already living in the suburbs than there is people here.
So then to live in a place like Indianapolis, you're not considered like a city boy or something like that necessarily if you choose to live there? Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't say so, no.
There's not that stigma, because I feel like, living in New York, living in the suburbs of Chicago, and then going to Des Moines and all that, there's this attitude of like, are you a city boy or are you like a,
everything's integrated.
Yeah.
And
that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it is pretty cool. I really liked living there a lot. It was fun. Everything is way cheaper and cleaner.
Well, it's cheaper, but
yeah.
I mean, like this, I feel like the sustainability of living tends to be a challenge in places like that. Where?
Why?
Well, okay, so everyone complains about the fact that Illinois is one of the most highest taxed areas and states, like the Chicagoland area, the burbs, like one of the most expensive places to live, not just in the country, but in the world. And so you have people who ask, well, our taxes are so ridiculous. Like, what are we paying taxes for? This is so absurd and stuff like that. I think we take for granted the benefits of the results of those high taxes. We have great roads. We have great security, fire protection, like general community building stuff.
Yeah.
Like, we're a very happy location, and I mean, we invested money to make that happen, but it's one of those things where you're not going to notice the difference just from a cursory glance or like a stereotype or living there for a couple of years or whatever. It takes time to be able to appreciate what a high cost of living is able to provide people. There's a trade-off between what it takes to live in a place that offers all these amenities and this perfect living conditions, and sort of being on your own to fend for yourself in one form or another.
Yeah, but they also when I was living there, they started building like this huge sports complex. So where I was living looks different now than it did 30 or 40 years ago. Like, it's really starting to boom and grow as like a modern suburban type place. Like the shopping plaza by where I used to live, I don't know when that got built, but it wasn't there maybe, I don't know.
Yes.
A while ago.
And I'm saying, like, certainly there can be the infrastructure, but...
And the thing, too, is they got their shit down to a T. Like, you know how everything, for the most part here, it's very, and mostly like the city of Chicago, things are done haphazardly and very, like, it's messy.
What do you mean?
Like, with like politics and getting shit done, and like, it's not, how should I say, as efficient as it could be. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I mean, there are
a lot
of...
In my brain, I'm thinking more lines of construction, like it's just this never-ending...
I feel like my mom is listening to this right now and like screaming into the radio because I'm sure that she has her perspective on it. Because as somebody who works in government, I'm sure she could probably school you as to like how it actually works. But go on, like talk about perspective. Talk about like what your perspective is from somebody who has no sort of affiliation with the field of what it is you're talking about.
Wow! If I had a nickel for every time that I thought that when you were talking about something.
I mean, I'm just thinking I take out the machete and just chop your knees off from like right around there.
I should go back and re-listen to every episode and point out every time that you were talking about something that you had no idea what you were talking about.
Yeah. All right, you're fair. I apologize.
We'll just end it right there.
No, we don't need to end it right there. Yes. All right. I'm very warm right now. Is it warming?
It's always warm in here.
It's very fucking warm.
It's always warm in here.
Holy shit.
Here, I'll say this. We'll end this. The state government in Indiana doesn't just fucking shut down like it has in here in Illinois.
Ain't that true?
So we'll leave that.
Wow. All right. I didn't mean to leave you in a sour mood.
No, I'm not in a sour mood, but I know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about things.
No, you absolutely know what you're talking about. I was kidding. Don't take it so serious. Why so serious?
But yeah, I'm good. All right. And I'm really warm right now.
I know, me too.
I'm talked out.
The temperature has risen by like 15 degrees in the past 5 minutes.
It's always so crazy. Hot in here, and we always forget to open the window. But
and close them afterwards, too. Yeah, I know.
Until next time.
Until next time, as we open the window and forget to close it before we leave and I get yelled at.